Salutations, folks! This video lesson is for listening and responding, which is going along with the course book for Intro to Interpersonal Communication. So this information comes from this particular text and should be similar if you have older versions of this book. Now, folks, if you see me look off screen, it's because I'm looking at my notes. Let's go ahead and get started, shall we? The book starts off defining hearing and listening, and yes, they are different. Hearing is the physiological process of taking in all the sounds. So it's everything around us. The physical process of us taking in sounds is hearing, whereas listening is the process of us choosing what to focus in on our hearing. And within listening is a process of selecting, attending, remembering, and responding. So let's go ahead and break that down. So selecting in this process is where you are choosing to give your focus. There's lots of noises around us all the time, and sometimes we have to choose a focus. It could be an employer, it could be a friend, it could be a teacher, it could be a coworker, a family member, but it's whom we're choosing to put our focus in to listen. So that's selecting. You're just making that choice. And attending is where we're giving our attention to. So you've made your selection. I'm going to listen to the teacher. And attending is focusing in on what they have to say, trying to block out all other noises that you are hearing. In a classroom setting, that could be other students. It could be shuffling of papers or books, or phones are out, or people are tapping, or computers. It could be other computer. It could be phones ringing. If you're in a high school setting, usually sometimes there's intercoms that go on. It could be the duct system for your heating or cooling. It could be people in the hallway. It could be noises right outside the window. So all those competing noises, you're selecting to listen to the teacher, and the attending is you're giving them your attention. And within that, there's also understanding. So understanding, if you recall the communication process, we talked about there's a sender and a receiver. Then there's messages through the channels. The sender encodes, so they are applying meaning to their message, and the receiver decodes. Here falls in understanding, so it's taking that message and you're applying meaning to what is being said. Okay. We then go into remembering, and remembering is just recalling information, and the book kind of goes into detail about short-term and long-term memory, and I'm not really going to discuss that. But when it comes to listening, and understanding with the attention part is recalling. So we take information that we know via what we have learned, or how we were raised, or what we believe, or what we think, and we apply that to our remembering when it comes to listening. And then from remembering, there is responding. Understanding also comes into responding. So when you're responding, it could be a verbal and nonverbal. It could be engaged, yes, or the nonverbal just, I get it, or I don't really get it. Like you're making a face, like, or, that's some really great news, or gosh, that news really bums me out. Like it makes me sad. That's where we go in with understanding as well and responding. So then the book goes in to talk about the different listening styles. Normally there's 4, then the book kind of goes off of a 5th one, but I don't really include that in the 4 main ones. So the 4 main ones to talk about there is the relational listeners. Relational listeners base their listening style, they're more on the emotional feelings is communicated verbally. This is the book's definition is those who prefer to focus on emotions and feelings communicated verbally and non-verbally by others. So relational listeners are more your emotional listeners. They're more of the sympathetic, empathetic listeners. Oh my gosh, I am so sorry. Is there anything I can do? Or, they are the ones that are more emotionally connected. And use the emotions both verbally and non-verbally. And verbally, it could be, oh my gosh, are you okay? How can I help? oh, goodness, that's awful, or that's fabulous, or that's wonderful, yay. And then the nonverbal aspect of that is inserting proper responses. And that could be, if it's a happy moment, yay, that's awesome. Or giving hugs. And hugs also, if there's like bad news, it could be comforting, depending on the situation. Or it could be, an arm or rub the back, or, I'm so giving a shoulder for someone to cry on. All that falls under the relational listening style. I tend to be a relational listener. I know this of myself. I am aware of this is how I'm listening, and it can hinder me sometimes because I will take things personally that were never intended to be put forth in that sense. But that's how my listening style, that's just how it works with me. Now, let's move forward into the other ones. There's also analytical listening style. Analytical listeners want to hear all the information before they give a comment, pass judgment. They want to hear all aspects. They want to hear every point of the story, they want to hear everything about it before they decide yay or nay, to agree or disagree, or to give feedback or comment. They want to hear everything. So analytical listeners are great in situations that you need someone with an unbiased opinion, because they choose to hear all the information and the facts and everything before they even start to interject into the message. The next style of listening is your critical listeners. And critical listeners, they prefer to listen for facts and evidence to support key ideas and the underlying logic. But also within this, they listen for errors, inconsistencies, and discrepancies. They are likely to catch errors in the overall logic and reasoning that's being used to reach a conclusion. Critical listeners are a bit more on the skeptical side. They are the ones that more second guess what they're hearing or what they're taking in. And second guessing, the book goes on just to say, it's questioning the ideas and assumptions underlying a message, assessing whether the message is true or false. So critical listeners, they hear the details, but they are very in tune to everything. So, if someone's telling a story, they're the ones that will call you out if it's not the same. Oh, well, last time you said it was the size of a softball, but now it's the size of a watermelon. So how big was it? You said it had the consistency of slime the first time, then it became the consistency of gravel? That makes no sense. Accuracy is important to critical listeners. They want to know the truth, and they will make sure, and they pay attention to make sure your story is valid and stays on track every time you tell it. Then the last one one of the four, the main one is task-oriented listeners. Task-oriented listeners, they just want the facts. They want it simple, straight to the point. They do not need fluff. They do not need fabrication. They don't need elaboration. They just need, for what's being said to them, what they're listening to, they just need the bare minimum, the point blank, straight to it information. They're not ones to sit around and really be into listening to everything attached to the meaning. They just want to be like, okay, so today you need to do this, this, and this, or this won't work because A, B, C. And so, well, this won't work because A is, and then they give an elaboration on why A won't work. They just need to know why it won't work. Or they just want to know the facts. They're guilty because they did this. Instead of, well, they did this because of the psychological or this or that. They don't need that information. They just need the straight facts. Task-oriented listeners just need the bottom line. That's all. They just want the straight facts, bottom line. So again, there's relational listeners. Those are your empathetic, sympathetic listeners. Analytical listeners, these are the ones that want to hear it all before they even begin to assess or comment or take in. Then there's critical listeners that they want to hear everything, and they are very attentive to all information given, and they can hear the validity, and they're the ones that tend to be more skeptical and second guess the message. Then there is task-oriented, which they just want the information. They want it straight, quick, to the point, bottom line. That's it. The book then talks about, its gender and listening style, but really what I'm going to touch base on the gender and listening style is that many decades ago, psychologists and social theorists and all kinds of different communication theorists broke everything down into gender, into masculine and feminine. And out of these theories evolved masculine listeners. Masculine listeners they listen with their goal to listening. Let me rephrase that. Their goal for listening is to solve a problem, accomplish a task, look for new structure in a message, or focus on one element in a message. So they say masculine listeners' listening style is they're in it to get information, to accomplish a goal or a task. Whereas the feminine listening style is to search for relationships among pieces of information in the message, to enhance relationships, to reinforce existing structures in a message, or to understand multiple elements in a message. So all of these folks say that the feminine listening style is to really enhance relationships, enhance messages, or to really be empathetic and understand the multiple elements of messages. Well, he's sad, but why is he sad? He could be sad because A, B, C, or D, maybe E, could be F, I don't know. That's what they're saying here with masculine is to get to a finish point, whereas feminine is to build upon and get deeper meaning. So I don't really put gender and listening style in with the four that we just discussed. I just find it an interesting side note in the book. Then it discusses the benefits of listening style. So the benefits of listening style is that you can adapt to how you listen to others. I said I'm a relational listener. That's my style. But sometimes that is not the best. I know there has to be flexibility in my listening style. And sometimes the messages that I need to receive does not need a relational listener. They need a critical listener or an analytical listener or a task-oriented listener. My personal self versus my mom, my mom life self, how I interact with teachers or if my child's on a sports team or activity or a club may change. And then how I interact with my coworkers or how I interact with my family members or how I interact with students. I need to have the flexibility to change my listening style. They also discuss that you can determine whether you have one or more preferred listening styles. Again, it's flexibility. Some people can be both critical and task-oriented. They want to hear everything, but once they hear everything, they can, all right, now I can hear the message again, and this time focus on what's being said. You can adapt your listening style to achieve your goal. So like I said, it's all about flexibility in my opinion. That's not what the book says. But what I take from it is that flexibility in listening styles is beneficial because of this. You can change depending on the goal that you need to, perhaps I'm breaking up a fight, very simple break it down. But if I'm breaking up a fight between my kids, I need to be able to listen to all the sides and then go forth. In a perfect world, you can listen to all sides when your children are fighting. You can better understand cultural and gender influences on your listening style. It's just being aware. Again, flexibility, being aware. And then you can better adapt what you say to others based off your listening style. Again, flexibility. So those are ways, if you know your listening style, then you're better prepared to be able to be more flexible. So then it goes on to talk about different listening barriers. And oh gosh, there are so many listening barriers out there in the world that we fight with on a daily basis. So there's being self-absorbed. Now, being self-absorbed, have you ever been in a conversation with someone and no matter what you say to them, good, bad, evil, happy, whatever it may be, somehow the conversation always goes back to them? They can always flip it. Oh gosh, I know exactly what you're feeling. Just 3 years ago, I was in these exact, I'm over dramatizing, being over dramatic in my example, but everything goes back to them. That's being self-absorbed. That means no matter what the message is, that they perceive it just to go back to them. So they're not really, they're not in tune with others. And within this, they talk about this conversational narcissism is the ability to flip the conversation back to themselves, no matter what. Like I said, good, bad, sad, evil, happy, whatever the case may be, they can always flip it back to themselves. And within that, there's selective listening. That means that listener is only hearing what they want to hear. They're not hearing the whole message. They're not hearing the whole conversation. They're not hearing everything. They're only taking out the bits and the pieces that they want to hear to coincide with what they, with their world. So that's a barrier, being self-absorbed. Unchecked emotions. There's emotional noise. Now, under emotional noise, I'm sure you've heard someone say trigger warning. There are words there, and it's not just words when it comes to emotional noise. It's also concepts or phrases or ideas that create emotional noise. What do I mean by this? Okay. Think of hot topic buttons that will set people off, and a lot of it falls under politics. Okay. Gun control is an emotional noise for people. Some people don't want to discuss it. They shut down. Active shooter drills in school, abortion laws, vaccinations, mask mandates, all those are hot topic phrases and concepts, and they create emotional noise. Now, I didn't say these things to get you or anyone else, to get anyone who's listening to this bothered. I'm just kind of going off things off the top of my head that I know that people are passionate about. The yays or the nays, there's passion there. There's people too that are indifferent, to each their own. But that's what they're talking about with emotional noise. If someone hears something, or if it's about a topic, and let's say someone is trying to say yay to a topic that you're nay about, or vice versa. If they're trying to say nay to something that you're very much yay about, that can cause us to not effectively listen. That's all I'm saying about stuff like this. It's emotional noise. It's, and everyone has trigger words or I just say trigger because hearing it or hearing about it automatically kind of, I don't want to hear any more about it, and you walk off. And that's why I say politics, because politics is a very strong, and politicians use these topics and headlines for their platforms, and it creates such strong emotional noise for people that they can immediately just be, don't want to hear it. And that's all sides. So far in listening barriers, we have being self-centered and unchecked emotions, and then there's criticizing the speaker. I feel like that's pretty straightforward. I'm not really going to go into detail about criticizing the speaker because that, if someone's like, this person's horrible, you're going to go into it going, I don't really want to listen or this or that. Then they talk about differing speech rate and thought rate. I can get behind this one. Not that I can't get behind other ones. Like I truly believe all of these things affect, obviously, listening ability to listen effectively. Some people can talk faster than they can write, or some people talk. I tend to be someone who talks fast. I probably talk fast in my video lessons because I'm trying to get through the lesson in a small amount of time, so it doesn't take me a gazillion years to upload the lesson videos. But if I'm really interested in a topic, or if I feel like I got a lot of information to get out, I tend to talk faster. I talk fast anyway, but in instances like that, I tend to talk even faster. Whew. So some people, they can't process all of what's being said to them because someone's like, da, 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 da. That affects listening. Or it can flip that switch. If you know someone that talks in a monotone voice and rate, you probably tune out because they're not talking fast enough. There's, why can't I think of his name? There was an actor, and he was in let me age myself some. Ferris Bueller's Day Off. The teacher, Bueller. Him, and I can't think of his name right now. He is known, he also used to do the Red Eyes, Clear Eyes commercial. There we go, I'll get it out. He has a very monotone voice. So, the rate of which someone speaks and their pitch, up and down and up and down and up and down, can affect our listening. If they're not, I tend to talk fast. I also tend to have a higher pitch voice, unless I put on my big girl voice when I answer telephones. Acting teachers used to tell me that. Use your big girl voice. Some people are off-put by high-pitched voices. I have come across people that don't really... My natural speaking voice is not fun for them because of the rate of which I speak, the pitch of which I speak. And there's nothing I can do. That's my voice. I mean, I can try to slow down, but that's what they're talking about with different speech rates and pitches and stuff like that. That can affect our listening styles. Okay. Then there's information overload. I'm not going to talk a whole lot on that, but a lot of times it's hard for us to listen when we're getting so much information. So if you're in a class and you're getting full, or if you're watching like the news or something, and you're just getting bombarded with all this information, perhaps there's a new tax getting ready to come out, or they're getting ready to raise taxes or do this or that, and you're trying to find the information about, voting's coming up, and there's these new taxes that we can vote on, or bills, or whatever the case may be. So you're trying to find information, boom, you are like information overload. So it makes it hard to listen. That's what they're talking about with information overload. And then there's external noise. That's everything that goes on out in the world. So, like I said, there could be so much going on that sometimes it's just physically hard to listen. Perhaps you're having dinner or lunch with a group of friends, and the restaurant you picked is super busy, super crowded. There's music going on. There's just all kinds of external noise. And you're just like, what? I can't hear, external noise. You're at home. Sometimes it's hard for me to be able to listen effectively and do things if all my kids are home, if everyone's home in my house, like a typical night or a weekend, and everyone's home, like we're not all over the place for extracurriculars or this or that. It's hard for me to effectively listen to things or focus in on things because there's so much external noise going on, kids screaming or playing, or television's going on, or video games going on, or I could be, cooking or doing something else in the background. So you just hear all kinds of things going on, and it's like, I can't focus. Another barrier. And then the last one is listener apprehension. This is the fear of misunderstanding the message. And that fear can be so much that you can't listen effectively. And that makes sense to me. So let's recap listening barriers, folks. There's self-absorption, unchecked emotions, criticism of the speaker, differing speech and thought rate, information overload, external noise, and listener apprehension. So the way we can overcome those is for self-absorption is to be conscious of our self-focus and shift attention. For unchecked emotions, use self-talk to manage emotions, Self-talk. Okay, I may not agree with them, but I am willing to listen to them. Criticism of the speaker is focus on the message and not the messenger. So you may not like who the speaker is, but it's you're intentionally focusing on listening, even though you may not like the speaker. I see that a lot with politicians too. You may not enjoy the speaker, but you want to hear all sides and you want to hear all points of view. So to do so, sometimes you have to ignore, I'm not listening to this person, I'm listening to the message that they're presenting. Okay. Differing speech, thought, and rate, just being the ability to focus to the best of our ability. Information overload, realizing that perhaps someone listening is tired, and okay, taking that step back. External noise, taking charge of listening environment by eliminating distractions, and listener apprehension. Concentrate on the message and summarize what you hear. So the book then goes into ways that we can improve our listening skills, and they just put it in 3 simple steps. Stop, look, and listen. So the listening skill for stop is to tune out distracting competing messages. And the action behind that is to become conscious of being distracted. Use on-task self-talk to remain focused. You can become aware of the other speaker's nonverbal cues. Monitor your own nonverbal cues to communicate your interest in the speaker. So this is doing the nonverbal of the message. Being attentive. Okay. Someone falls asleep while you're talking to them, that pretty shows they're not interested. Actions that fall with that is establishing eye contact or avoid fidgeting or performing other tasks when someone's speaking to you. Listen with your eyes, giving someone your full attention with your eyes. Then the last is to listen. The listening skill with that is creates meaning from your partner's verbal and nonverbal messages. So, you're combining the verbal and the nonverbal here. The action behind it is mentally summarizing details and linking these details to the main ideas. Okie dokie. It discusses next about empathetic listening and how to be a better empathetic listener. I'm not going to go over all that or the responding skills. Well, sorry, I had a better note on responding skills, but I think my paper fell out. Anyway, with responding skills, it's taking and decoding and applying understanding and meaning to what you're hearing. And you can do this verbally and nonverbal. And other ways for responding is to summarize, to paraphrase, to be attentive. All that falls under. So, ladies and gentlemen, this was the abridged version of listening and responding from our textbook. Just a little snippet to help with this lesson even more. If you have any questions or concerns, please reach out to me and we will chat about it. Thanks so much, and I hope that you have an amazing day.